In this section, we'll be dealing with the concept of average. What is the formula for finding the average of a set of numbers? The formula is the sum of the numbers divided by the number of numbers. In other words, if you have a set of numbers, you have to add them up and divide by how many numbers there are to find the average of that set of numbers. So for example, what is the average of the numbers 7, 18, 6, 23, 11, 9, and 3? First, we would add those numbers up. 7 plus 18 plus 6 plus 23 plus 11 plus 9 plus 3 is 77. Then, you would have to divide 77 by the number of numbers. In this case, there are 7 numbers, so we would divide 77 by 7 to get 11. Therefore, the average of these 7 numbers is 11. Let's take a look at some applied average questions. If the average of 5 numbers is 12, what is the sum of the numbers? Remember, the formula for average is the sum divided by the number of numbers. So we know that 12, which is the average, is equal to the sum of the numbers divided by 5, which is the number of numbers. In any average question, you're going to be given two of these three things. You're going to be given either the average, or the sum, or the number of numbers. The two things you're given, in this case the average and the number, put them into this formula. And then you can solve for the part that's missing just through straight algebra. So here we have that 12 is equal to the sum divided by 5. We multiply both sides of this equation by 5. The 5's cancel out. And on the left side we just get 5 times 12, which is 60. On the right side we get sum. So it turns out that the sum is equal to 60. Once again, whenever you have an average question, set up this formula and then plug in the values that you know, whether it's average and sum, or average and number, or sum and number. Let's take a look at another question. So in this case the answer is 60. If the average of a set of numbers is 9 and the sum of the numbers is 72, how many numbers are there? Once again, the formula is average is equal to sum divided by number. We know that the average is 9, we know that the sum of the number is 72. What we don't know is the number of numbers. We can cross multiply, pretending that number is just a variable here, and we get 9 times the number is equal to 72. We divide both sides by 9, the 9's cancel out, and we're left that the number is 8. So it turns out that there are 8 numbers if the average of a set of numbers is 9 and the sum of those numbers is 72. Another good thing you should remember about average, or another interesting thing you should remember about average, something that might be helpful in later questions, is that the average of two numbers is also their midpoint. For example, consider 6 and 22. The average of 6 and 22 is 14 because 6 plus 22 divided by 2 is equal to 28 divided by 2, which equals 14. To find the average of 6 and 22, we use the formula as usual. We find the sum, we divide it by the number of numbers. Since there's two numbers, that's why we're dividing by 2. So the average of 6 and 22 is 14. However, you can see that the distance from 6 to 14 is 8. If we subtract 6 from 14, we get 8. Or if we were to count the steps to go from 6 to 14, we would get 8. And similarly, the distance from 22 to 14 is also 8. Because these two distances are the same, it means 14 is exactly in the middle between 6 and 22. And so therefore 14 is the midpoint of 6 and 22. Let's take a look at this question. If the average of a set of numbers is equal to x, it's as if every number in the set is equal to x. Suppose Clark visited 5 stores and spent the following. He spent $40 in store 1, $90 in store 2, $100 in store 3, $50 in store 4, and $70 in store 5. Clark spent a total of $350 in these 5 stores. The average amount that Clark spent is 70 because 350 divided by 5 is equal to 70. However, this is the same as if Clark had spent $70 in each of the stores. Because if Clark had spent $70 in each store and there were 5 stores, he would have again spent a total of $350. So, if you have a question that deals with averages and you know the average, it's as if every single element in the set you're dealing with has that value. So for example, take a look at this question. Alex's average score for 6 games of bowling is 115. What must he bowl in his 7th game in order for his average score to be 120? It's as if Alex bowled 6 games, and each game he bowled 115, or he got 115 points. Now, we know in the real world he might have gotten more points in one game, less in another, and different amount of points in every single game, and it would have averaged out to 115. But the total would have been the same. The total number of points he has would have been the same if he had scored 115 in each game, or if he had bowled 115 in each game. He then bowled his 7th game, and we don't know how much he bowled in that game. However, we do know that the sum of all these games, of all these 7 games, is 115 times 6, because there's 6 games where he bowled 115, and then plus x, because we don't know what he bowled in the 7th game. The total number of games is 7. So to find the average, we have to, we know the desired average is 120. To find the average, we would have to use the formula and say that average is equal to the sum divided by the total number of games. Or in other words, the average, the desired average, 120, is equal to 6 times 115 plus x, because that's the sum of all the points, divided by 7, because that's the total number of games. If you do the algebra, you get that x equals to 90. So Alex must bowl a 90 in his 7th game in order for his average score to be 120.